We all know the power of franchise ownership is the other franchisees, right? You're joining a sister and brotherhood of other franchisees that support you just as much as HQ supports you.
Just on average, how many seals are in a commercial kitchen? Welcome back to another episode of Azor Zoom. Today we have Jamie with the seals. And I love this brand. It is one of the most simple models that you can come across, very low investment and incredibly scalable. So Jamie, introduce yourself, introduce the brand, tell us a little bit about it.
Awesome. Well, hi, thank you again for having me, the Lucases and TFC, my faves. I love this brand. I'm Jamie Levine. I've been in Fran Dad for almost 19 years come April of 26, and I love franchising. I've been in Fran Dad for a long time, and this brand, when EverSmith Brands purchased it back at the beginning of 25, I got pumped by it. And I was already on Kitchen Guard, which is, I thought was my favorite brand until this happened. I love Kitchen Guard. And I wanted to buy a Kitchen Guard. Now I want to buy a Seals. It's when we purchased it, I fell in love with it. I went to the CEO of EverSmith Brands and said, please, when it's ready, let me be on this brand. So here I am today. I'm excited about the Seals. It is such a simple model. It is still a B2B brand and it's needs based. Now, we can't use the same tagline as I can for Kitchen Guard where it's required by law, but it is still part of the health inspection process. So what is the seals? The easiest way to put it is that it's a gasket business. So every single gasket or seal on every refrigeration unit and hot units like ovens and stoves, etc., those gaskets, those seals, it's the same word, it's just synonymous word. Those are repaired or replaced multiple times a year. The average seal is going to be replaced 3 to 4 times a year, and in some places, even more frequent. So that's 80% of our business are these seals. I call it the gateway drug to get them in. I know, should we not be talking about drugs? Drugs are not a good thing, but it's the way to get in the door, right? So the who we're servicing are the same exact clients as Kitchen Guard: restaurants, bars, school systems, hotels, grocery stores, convenience stores, etc. And that's why it's genius that EverSmith Brands purchased the seals because of Kitchen Guard.
Yeah, I love that synergy as well because, as Kitchen Guard's obviously been around a little bit longer, more established, as we were talking off air, you've sold most major markets for Kitchen Guard already. So as the seals comes into play, I mean, you've got somebody you can lean on already in most of these major markets to
Yep.
help, be introduced to the same customer base that you need as an owner.
Exactly. So we all know the power of franchise ownership is part of that power is the other franchisees, right? You're joining a sister and brotherhood of other franchisees that support you just as much as HQ supports you, right?
Right.
And in this case, in my opinion, when you join the Seals or a Kitchen Guard, you get double, right? Because you're going to have that benefit of the Kitchen Guard franchisees helping and the other seals as we're doing, because it really just falls right in line. So everything that EverSmith Brands already built for Kitchen Guard with the relationships and the national accounts and stuff like that, the seals are going to just slide right into place. And I joke, and do you remember the TV show How I Met Your Mother?
Yes.
And Barney would introduce Ted to a girl, and he'd say, have you met Ted? And throw, well, that's the same concept here, right? Is the Kitchen Guard franchisees can now introduce the seals to their contacts, go to a restaurant association meeting and introduce them. Have you met the seals? And push them and walk away, right? Probably no pushing, no drugs, no pushing. We don't condone violence or those things, but it's that concept, right? So yeah, it's genius.
No, it really is genius, and it's so simple. How many, like, just on average, how many seals are in a commercial kitchen? I mean, I know you mentioned refrigerator and oven, but
So
there's
an average size kitchen is probably about 15 to 20. But the larger kitchens, like the big restaurants like PF Chang's and your Olive Gardens and stuff like that, are probably 50 to 75, right?
Oh, wow.
So, and these gaskets are made out of plastic, basically. And that's why they get punctured or they rip, or they get mold on them. And that's where the health inspector comes into play. When those things happen, the food or whatever it's storing, because this could be a hospital, so it could be blood or drugs, that could go bad. And so the health inspector's coming in, and one of the things they look at are all these gaskets. And if they are punctured, torn, or moldy, it affects their health rating. But also, it should be important to that restaurant owner or the general manager of that restaurant, because their food costs are going to start climbing if their food is going bad faster because it's not properly sealed.
I hadn't even thought about other than food. So you mentioned the hospitals and drugs, and well, I feel like there's a common theme here. But no, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. And so how tell us how the franchisee makes money. How often do these things need to be replaced? Did she already say that?
She did, but that's okay.
Well,
We
Yeah,
tell
wanna
us
that's
we
all
wanna
right.
hear
It's
it.
not, repetition's good. The gaskets and the seals are replaced 3 to 4 times a year in most cases, but of course there's exceptions to that. So the concept here is that a franchisee will start as their own account executive, but they'll also hire another account executive. An account executive is somebody that sells as well as does the installs of the seals or any of the other services that we provide, because seals is just what we mostly do, but we also do other things. We can come back to that. But they go in, they introduce themselves to the restaurants or the grocery stores as what they do. And in most cases, it's very well received because it's very rare to find people that do what we do or dedicate it to what we do. So you go in, you offer a free inspection after you introduce who you are. And most of the time, probably 8 out of 10 times, they're going to say, yeah, go for it. Because you're going to show up when they're not busy. They're doing prep. They're not during breakfast, lunch, or dinner hour, right? And you go around and do a quick inspection, and then you grab manager on duty and say, this is what we found. Are you open to us replacing it? Once they become a client, now we're going to set it up so that we do that quarterly. So again, it's stay ahead of the health inspector, but also to make sure that your food and beverages, etc., are staying to temperature and you're not losing food cost, right? So it's a quarterly scenario. Now, some may not need to be quarterly because maybe it's just not a very busy restaurant or something like that, but that's the general idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and then the margins in are incredibly good. So, a few examples is a half gasket, a half door gasket is going to cost the franchisee about $25, but they're going to charge $100+ to install it. Now, of course, you've got to leave out a margin to pay your person who sold it and installed it, but there's still a nice healthy margin. And that's just starting with gaskets. So I'd love for you to say, tell us what other revenue streams you
Tell us
have.
what other. Please continue.
I realized before this that I talk too much. I can't give simple,
Nope,
quick
I'm
answers.
taking
So
notes furiously.
We're just gonna let you interview yourself. It's all good.
exactly. So, as I said, gaskets is what gets us in the door. That's what people deal with the most. But we have other things that we service that the health inspector inspects, which have even bigger margins. So, an example of that would be cutting boards. Think of Subway, and that huge long cutting board. That's not a standard cutting board anybody orders. That's special, right? And when
Right.
you start cutting into these cutting boards, after a certain point, the divots get so deep that it causes potential issues for your health concerns for your food. The health inspector measures how deep those cuts are. So we do cutting boards. We also do the door hinges and handles on walk-ins. So those things. So here's another margin example. A typical hinge on a walk-in will cost the franchisee $7. but they're going to charge several $100s to install it. Another great example is diamond plating. Have you ever heard of diamond plating? Not everybody knows what that is. It's that sheet metal that has like little crisscrosses on it. You see a lot on the truck, the beds of trucks or on
Right.
their bumpers and stuff. Well, that's typically put into these walk-ins on the floors and sometimes up the walls to help with traction and stuff like that. That is a thin metal, so when it does tear, it pulls up and can cause mold as well as other potential injuries. To install diamond plating in a walk-in, it's a bigger job, so it does have to be done overnight, or when the restaurant's closed during the day, possibly. That's really the only time outside you have to work out, nights or weekends. But it's going to cost the franchisee around $1,100 to $1,500 in costs. But they're going to charge over 9 grand typically to install
Wow.
Wow.
that. So talk about mark. Now, you're not going to get a diamond plating job for every client all the time, etc., right? And then there's other things like door sweeps and the plastic strips that hang down and so forth. And we can do minor repairs in the kitchen, etc. So lots of other stuff. But again, 80% of it is going to be those gaskets.
No idea.
So talk to us a little bit. I know you said a little bit ago about, there's not a whole lot of folks that are out there doing this type of service. So who do you see as your main competitors in a local market?
The main competitor in a local market is going to be the giant refrigeration companies, but they don't want to do it. They will tend to subcontract it out. So we just tell our franchisees, just make friends with them and become their subcontractor because it's such a small dollar amount for them. They want to focus on, replacement of compressors and stuff like that. They may find a man in a van that does it. There is one competitor out there that does what we do, but they don't have the power of ESB, the national accounts that we're creating, the relationship with Kitchen Guard. They don't have the same concept of quarterly visits and stuff like that. So there is some competition, but very minimal. And there's so much business that it doesn't matter. There's enough
Right.
business for everybody. So, yeah.
Okay.
What about the initial investment? I don't think we touched on that yet.
No, not yet. And that's one of the best things about this. It's such a low investment. So this is going to, for all the candidates out there that are really wanting to get into business ownership, but they don't want to use all of their family's fortune, right? They can get in at around 100 to 150,000 all in, and
Wow.
49,000 of that is the franchise fee. So it's mostly a working capital type of investment. They can start from home. We will eventually want them to get a small office space but it could be one of those shared office spaces, but that's only for Google rankings. We're not going to enforce that right away. They do not need to have a fleet of vehicles. Their account executives will use their own. We do require them to wrap a vehicle. We don't care what kind of vehicle it is. It could be a Prius, it could be an F-250, or Suburban. It doesn't matter. But they do have to have a one wrapped vehicle. And it could be a vehicle they already own, as long as it's in good condition. Ideally, we want it to be a year 2000 or better. There's no inventory that they keep. There is money that they have to invest into marketing at the beginning, of course, like every franchise does. But they also don't carry inventory. Did I say that? No inventory. And their equipment is a drill gun, a measuring tape, and this little thing that they wear for stickers. I mean, it's just so darn simple. So to get an account executive up and running is only going to cost them for equipment, $200 or $300. So it's just that easy. I should not use the word easy. I love that word, but I'm going to backtrack out and say simple. It's that simple.
Simple.
Yes, starting a business is never easy, but
Never.
some models are more simple than others. Yes, very well.
Yes, yes. And it
Okay,
has
so
the ability to break even much quicker than most brands because that investment level is so low. The name of the game here, though, is for the scaling part of it is account executives. And I think that is, and I can look at, and if you're open to, I can tell you a story about Peyton Mitchell and how he scaled and how he was a little scared to hire account executives. But as soon as he figured out, like, okay, the name of the game is I need to keep hiring account executives, that's when he took off like a rocket ship. So we require them to start with one account executive, but you got to get past the fear of paying a salary. It is what it is. It's a investment because they need to sell. An account executive can only handle 150 accounts. You're going to have a territory of way more opportunity than 150 accounts.
And does the account executive do the replacement of these gaskets and seals, or do you hire somebody? It's that person. Okay.
Nope. So we want at the beginning, it's going to make the most sense for the owner and the account executive to sell and install. And that is a fear some people have. They think it's going to be really difficult. Oh, the new stupid thing with the thing, because I use my hands. Sorry, I don't have a question, huh?
I
So
closed it.
so it is a big fear that people have is the installation, but it's so easy. And during a Meet the Team Day, we have people actually measure and do an install of a gasket, and they're like, "Oh, wow, that was easy. That was so simple." And like, exactly. So at the beginning, it makes the most sense for them to do both. However, as they scale and they have multiple account executives, they could hire just a installer so that the
Okay.
account executives can focus more on selling, right? Or they can also, as they have several accounts up and running, could hire just a salesperson to just go after new sales and then feed the account executives, right? So there's ways to kind of pivot with this model. But I have had some candidates say, like, I don't want to do installation. Okay, no problem. Focus on new business. And once you get that new client, you hand it over to your account executive. They don't get the commission off the first sale, but they do get paid to do the installs. And now it's their client to service every quarter. Right. So there's ways to get around it. But honestly, once people see how the hardest part of it is making sure you measure properly. And if you're bad at measuring tapes like I am, that's going to be the worst problem. I cannot read a measuring tape for the life of me. I don't know what my problem is.
I struggle with that too now that you
Well,
say
they
that.
make digital ones now, so maybe try one.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes.
What about the ownership model? Is it a fully active ownership model? Do you allow for semi-passive to start? How does this work?
We want owner operator right out the gate. Now, the exception is if they're already have experience being semi-absentee because they have multiple other businesses. So I'm working with a candidate right now that owns 5 restaurants. We would allow him to be semi-absentee, right? I'm also working with a candidate right now that has 80 Anytime fitness franchises, and his partner has several Papa Lock franchises. I would allow them to be semi-absentee because they have the experience with it. So otherwise, no, we want somebody that's full-time. Before EverSmith Brands purchased the seals, the founder allowed semi-absentee, and for the 4 franchisees that were there beforehand, only one's really crushing it, and the other ones are semi-absentee. So therefore, we're not open for
No,
that.
we get that.
Sure.
And then how do you define a territory?
So that's one of the cool things again with Kitchen Guard is we overlap the territories so they match. So they're big territories. It's based on what's called an RFSC count, Retail Facility Service Center. So that is going to be between 1,200 to 2,000 RFSC. That is essentially restaurants and bars. Okay. But that's not the only, I'd like to make sure people understand that's not your only opportunity. That's just the bulk of your opportunity where you're going to get the most repeat business. But there's still the grocery stores, the convenience stores, the hospitals, the school systems, all these other options, right? Churches, etc. But just the grocery stores and convenience stores, think about the lines of those things. I
Sure.
go in the grocery store all the time because I want to buy the seals for the state of New Hampshire. And I go in and I'm like, look at this thing. It's falling apart. And my significant other's like, do you think we could get Hannaford as a client, babe? And I'm like, yeah, of course we could. So yeah, it's a great territory, big.
I love it. What are we missing? Did we forget? I mean,
I feel like we've covered most everything. Is there something that we left out?
I think the only thing else, I mean, there's so much to cover, but I think the only other thing that would be really impactful to make sure that your viewers understand is this is such a great family friendly model, right? This is not a business that they are going to be on call for. Right? This is not a business that has to be done outside of the exception to the installation of diamond plating. They can work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They can make their own hours, right? Same with their account executives. Account executives or themselves can work nights and weekends if they want to, right? So say the owner, the account executive has a kid that's got a baseball game and they don't want to miss it. No problem. Go work on Saturday, make up for that, right? If they, so it's a really family friendly. So Peyton Mitchell, the gentleman I referenced earlier, that's one of the reasons why he got into the seals. He was a Sonic drive-through operator and he was using the seals as a vendor and the seals started franchising. He has young children and him and his father-in-law were like, let's do it. They moved their family down to Columbia, South Carolina and started this business. And he has the best work-life balance ever. And that's what I think is really important.
I knew it was coming.
I know our story sold, but no, that's awesome. I love to hear that. And actually, I don't hope you wouldn't mind, but a member of our team went in and purchased this franchise. So our territory, but
Yeah.
that speaks volumes, for how much we believe in this brand. This and the kitchen.
Kitchen
Why
guard,
can't I
yeah.
talk?
Yeah, kitchen guard is a phenomenal opportunity too. But for those that are looking for more of that family lifestyle, the Seals does work better just from the hours of operation.
Pros and cons in both scenarios. Kitchen
Sure.
guard's a much bigger operation. It requires a fleet and night work and stuff like that, but the revenues can be much, much bigger over here.
Sure.
I think the Seals has the ability to have really high revenues as well, but we're an emerging brand and we haven't seen that yet. But that's where EverSmith Brands comes into place and is putting in all these things like the national accounts and whatnot to really set these new franchisees up for success to just take off like a rocket ship. So
Yep.
Love it.
I love
buy
it.
your
So-
ticket, climb aboard.
So if you're interested, shoot me a text 270-215-2844. We'll get with Jamie and the team, make sure your market is still available and talk about next steps.
That's right. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks,
Thank
Jamie.
you guys.